We are deeply concerned about anti-Semitism in New York, which has increased more than 400% in the past 8 years.
So you may have missed it, but Republicans are going all in on anti-Semitism, and this Democratic representative from New York is calling it out.
Now, today we've already heard two members of the majority reference what one called the Sorosization of criminal justice, the criminal justice system.
With the Sorosization, George Soros
taking money from George Soros. No,
George Soros-funded rogue prosecutor
is the Soros prosecutors.
The George Soros is
that all the Soros-backed district attorneys are doing this everywhere. It led a Soros Supreme Court justice
directly funded by George Soros.
20 seconds. And I want to mention that when I was walking in here today, there was a man outside with a sign. And I would just like to hold this sign up. You saw it, right? There's a Star of David with $2 signs and Soros. Would you say that's anti-Semitic?
That's 100% anti-Semitic, and it's disgusting.
Right.
So that clip did an excellent job of pointing out how Republicans are dog-whistling anti-Semitism as we speak. And it is all part of this larger trend that we are seeing among the Republican Party that is fully diving into ridiculous conspiracy theories. And it actually ties in to a lot of other features of the Republican Party that they're talking about right now. But identifying these dog whistles is actually relatively simple, because they will talk about globalists, they will talk about George Soros, sometimes they'll use the word elitist, but whatever words it is they're using, you have to look for the patterns of what they're saying is happening. What they will do is they will take some marginalized group of people, typically Jewish folks, as like the central piece of their conspiracy theory, claim arbitrarily that they're somehow secretly magically in power and are turning everybody gay or trans and communist. And this quite literally is anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that dates back to Nazi Germany. Originally, they called it cultural Bolshevism or Judeo-Bolshevism. Except for today, you'll hear right-wingers talk about cultural Marxism, which quite literally is the same concept that was just changed and whitewashed in order for them to recycle the same exact anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. And it really, unfortunately, is the heart of the Republican Party today, because everything from their anti-vax conspiracy theories to their vicious lies about the queer community, trying to claim that all queer people are groomers, all of these things are tied in to this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, which is this idea that somehow secretly there's a secret organization of wealthy Jewish people that are turning people gay and replacing white people and turning everyone communist. And it is absurd on its face, but it unfortunately is fueling a ridiculous amount of violence and hate crimes across the country, which is why it is not surprising to people who have been paying attention that hate crimes against trans people and hate crimes against Jewish people have increased at the same time. Because fundamentally, these right-wingers are pushing and believing the same underlying conspiracy theories that drive both of these types of hate crimes. And unfortunately, Republicans are legislating in this way as well. Unfortunately, we are seeing across this country in many different states, Republican governors, Republican state representatives, even Republican attorney generals, actively spreading this propaganda and this conspiracy theory, and then putting in place laws to try and ban drag shows, to try and ban gender-affirming care, all under this presumption that somehow children are being maliciously targeted and turned gay and trans by these evil queer people. But then asked how to explain how this could possibly be happening when queer folks are incredibly marginalized, especially trans people, you start to dig a little bit deeper and you'll find that they'll sometimes talk about business interests, and then maybe they'll talk about elite business interests, and then they'll talk about globalists, and at that point it should be pretty obvious that they are delving pretty deep into ridiculous anti-Semitism. Anything to justify the violence that they perpetrate against marginalized people, whether that be individualized violence by extreme conspiracy theorists or systemic violence from Republican elected officials. It all has the same core and the same root, which is why it is so important that whenever we're having a conversation about these anti-vax conspiracy theories or these anti-trans conspiracy theories, that we touch on the simple fact that at the root of all of these is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that is unfortunately centuries old. Quite literally, medieval kings of Europe would use anti-Semitic conspiracy theories of, oh, they're coming for your children, in order to avoid any type of accountability for problems they would cause as monarchs. And now today, as our economy is struggling and working class people are struggling, you have the Republican Party bringing this same old line of anti-Semitism in order to try and shrug off and justify the terrible state that our economy is in. And the simple fact that while working class people continue to struggle, you have wealthy capitalists that make huge profits off of our backs. And that right there is why under capitalist society, there will always be this strain of anti-Semitism, because fundamentally, there are too many wealthy capitalists who view anti-Semitism as a useful tool to undermine any type of realization that the real problems in our society are driven by the simple fact that our economy is not dictated by democracy, but instead is dictated by wealthy investors and business owners who have a profit incentive to keep expenses high and wages low.